Hello!
Hey everybody!
I think it's working now, thanks to our brand new $1,100 computer. Isn't that how much it was?
A little bit more.
I just don't even want to know.
So tell your friends about Gogh Box because we need to sell some more Gogh Boxes.
Yeah, we need to pay for this computer that allows us to go live.
Yeah, next week we'll try it. Just this week we're just doing it in 720 HD. Next week we'll try it in 1080. I just want to make sure we got a good, nice, stable broadcast today.
Yeah, we don't want to repeat of last week.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. So we decided we wanted to at least be on here for you today. So here we are.
Here we are. So, I'm Jenny, this is Paul.
Hello.
And we are owners of Vingo Artist Bar and Studio in Portland, Oregon. And the Gogh Box is a little extra company we started on the side to bring some of the same thing we do in the studio to people all around. So I think our furthest away box is now West Virginia, which is really cool. We have some in Wyoming.
Our good
Hello,
friends,
Hales.
good friends in Wyoming bought our box. They missed us, we missed them, and it's good to see that we can reach out to them through the internet and the interwebs and still be part of everybody's life like that.
Yeah, they were Vingo regulars and then moved to Wyoming. I don't blame them seeing the pictures of their property. It's amazing. And now when they come back to visit family here, they pop into our studio. And now we get to bring the studio to them as well, just like we are to all of you who are participating. So let's talk about what we're drinking tonight. Thanks to our wine rep, which is Tim at Northwest Negotiant Project. He has picked up the wines from Merkin Vineyard, which is Maynard James Keenan, who is also known as the lead singer of Tool, who we've got streaming in the background, the new album out there. So this is Maynard's Vineyard, actually, and today we are drinking Shinola Orancia. I think I pronounced that right. It's an orange Malvasia Bianca. So it is basically a white chilled wine, and what do you think of it now that we just opened it?
Well, I like it. It's got a really nice crisp taste. It definitely pick up notes of apricot, and if you see the color, you can really see that color.
Yeah, here, let's hold that up again. It's kind of an amber color. And fun bottle, and yeah, I really like it. Nice and refreshing, and definitely gets the apricot in there. And it's not sweet. That's what I like. It's actually a rather drier wine.
Yeah, a lot of the rosé-ish type of wines tend to be a little bit too sweet for my liking, but rosé is my favorite type of wine for the most part, especially kind of fall and winter, not winter, but summertime. And I want to point out, we've got these funky little cups, and these are... We do have nice wine glasses, but we get these from a fantastic vineyard nearby who makes does pottery as well. They're called Potter's Vineyard. They're in Sherwood, and they hand make all these little goblets. And this way we get to feel like a little bit more
rustic
medieval. And medieval, and I could put grog or mead in here or whatever. But
that's a good idea. Mead, we'll have to do mead.
We'll do a mead night. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, Potter's Vineyard. We teach some classes there. It's about just like 5 minutes from downtown Maine, Sherwood. And Sherwood is not that far out there. A lot of people think it's that little town on the way to the beach, which it kind of is, but
well, it's kind of like
it's a lot closer in than people give it credit for.
The last little town of the suburbs is what it really is.
Yeah, so Potter's Vineyard, they make great wine and great wine cups, and then we are really enjoying Maynard's orange wine here. It's actually pretty delicious. Let's do a toast.
Toast.
Cheers to our second video and
it's working.
Big computer.
It's working.
All right, so the painting we have today is Toketee Falls, which for about 3 weeks I've been calling it Tokatee Falls, and that is because we realized we misspelled it. How embarrassing! Instead of the A in there, it should be an E. We are definitely known for the occasional misspelling, and I suppose on Native American names that we're not 100% familiar with, that's probably gonna... It looks like it would be spelled right.
Now, to be fair, there is a golf course in Oregon called Tokatee. I can't remember what it's called. It's Tokatee Golf and Country Club or something like that, and it is spelled Tokatee.
Are you sure?
I did. Yeah. I used to work in the golf industry. I knew it from that time. You guys.
Is it near Toketee Falls? Maybe they spelled it wrong.
I think it is. I don't know. Golfers, they're not. I don't know. Maybe they only can count up to 4.
4. So, Paul, tell us, do you know anything about Toketee Falls? Have you ever been
really
there?
don't know anything about Tokatee Falls. I have not been there. I've seen some wonderful pictures, and it's definitely going to be on my list of places to go see with my art adventures once I get that channel up and rolling.
With all your spare time.
All my spare time. You guys are going to help me have more spare time to be able to go out and do this. So, but yeah, it's on my short list of places I want to go see maybe next summer or early in the spring.
Yeah, I think it'd be really nice to visit. And I read online, I think it's, I don't remember how many miles west of Roseburg in
I don't know.
Douglas County. I don't remember if it was 58 or more than that. I seem to remember an 8 in the number. So anyway, it looks like a really great place to visit. It looks like it would make some awesome cliff diving, but maybe in person it might be a little daunting. I don't know.
A little known fact about the state of Oregon is there's actually more waterfalls in the state of Oregon than any other state in the United States. That's pretty cool.
I didn't know that. I learned something
I believe
today.
there's 238. Did not research it, just trying to remember off the top of my head. But I do know that we do a lot of waterfalls, and I do like to try to present some information for people so they know what's going on.
Information.
I would like to prevent information. I'm a fascist. What can I say?
Okay, so this is actually inspired by a painting Paul did several years ago for the studio of Multnomah Falls. I really liked the coloring that he did in it and the technique, which I think you learned from Jerry Yarnell, right? Was he the one that did the glaze?
No, it was another one. It was Wyland.
Oh, okay. Oh, Wyland. We went to his gallery in Hawaii. That was
Maui.
Cool.
That was really cool.
So it's sort of a glazing technique where we start with purple, we glaze over it with yellow, and you get this brownish look that when everything kind of comes together, it looks very autumn-like.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's a great technique, and it builds a nice depth and a background feel, which makes the background feel further away rather than being right up in our face, which when we're painting landscapes, we want to try to do that as much as we can.
Yep. And looking at pictures of Toketee Falls, it is really, this actually is very carved out and dramatic. And I told Paul, I said, well, this I think is a younger Toketee Falls. It's like back before the waterfall had carved away at this hillside. So yeah, this is my younger Toketee Falls, and we're gonna get started here. Before we do the glaze, we have to let all the underpainting dry, so you will have a little bit of a break in there, and I figured I would use that break to show you some tree techniques, because you can never practice trees too many times. They are easy to make happy little accents with.
I think sometime in the next week or two, when I've got some downtime, which as Jenny pointed out, I don't have a lot of downtime, but I might do a little tree tutorial and really kind of look at some pictures of trees. And I actually kind of want to start a little series called The Art of Seeing.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a really cool thing that we can do. We can start learning about
cool
how
name.
to see things.
Trademarked.
Yeah, trademarked. Because, ooh, there's the table. Oh my goodness, I've just got big knees. But that's one of the things that I think is really important when we're painting landscapes in general, is learning how to, see what's actually there and not go with a preconceived idea of what we think a tree looks like. So.
Yep, exactly. So I think we're ready to start. And do expect that your painting is going to look a little different than this. I promise you mine, even though I designed this one and painted it myself, my new one is not going to look exactly the same. There will be some differences, but that's what's kind of fun about going with something that's not drawn on the canvas. You can end up with something really cool.
And mine will be definitely different than yours. And
always.
Yeah.
Always. So let's set this aside, and I'll reference it a lot throughout the little tutorial here. And I wonder how long we'll be painting for. Maybe about an hour-ish. Kinda, sorta. We'll see. We'll see, because I haven't taught this one yet. So how am I lined up here? Looking good. Okay, I've got my instruction sheet, which some of you guys who subscribe to the Gogh Box will have that also. It makes a nice reference. So let's see, colors. Let's point them out. We have, your little kit came with 8 colors. Last video I lied. We do use Bahama Blue, your Tiffany box turquoise here, in this painting. I thought that we didn't, but I was wrong.
Now, if you used all of your Bahama Blue, I think we can get away with
definitely
using some white and phthalo blue, and maybe even a touch of yellow to kind of tone that down a little bit and give us a little bit of a turquoise look. But
absolutely. The only thing that Bahama Blue was used for is I originally painted the water really blue, and then I thought, well, I actually wanted a little more green. So then I glazed over it with a deeper green. So technically we could get away without the Bahama Blue. So maybe I was thinking along those lines. I don't know. We'll go with that. All right, so we did our toast. We're talking about colors. Bahama Blue, bright primary red, a little bit of black. I think we only use black for the deciduous tree trunks.
That's not very much.
No, don't need much at all. Save your black for something else. Phthalo blue, which is the deep dark indigo. I'll probably refer to it as indigo because most people will recognize that name rather than phthalo blue if you're new to painting. We have two yellows actually. We have a deep yellow, which is the exact same shade as a school bus. And then we have bright yellow, which is kind of more of a lemony shade. White, and then we've got our lovely pumpkin orange. So to get started, you should have a little handful of brushes. These are our Gogh Box kit we sell for $12. It is a 1-inch wide brush, a number 8 bright. There we go. I'll put that. Oh, actually, I'll set them here. And that's about a 1/4 inch wide flat brush. And then we've got the number 4 round, which I have used a number 2 round. I've used a number 6 round, and I find that number 4 seems to be the favorite and work the best. We are using Simply Simmons brushes. We sell them, like I said, for $12 a kit. You can buy them through the Gogh Box website, goghbox.com. Or these are sold at Michael's. I'm not sure what they sell them for, but I do try to pass some of my wholesale pricing on to you guys.
I want to say they're right around $5 a brush at Michael's.
Maybe.
Somewhere around there.
I'll have to look sometime so that I know. And then our palette, you can use a paper plate at home or maybe an old plate that you can just wipe off with a towel. We've been using these in the studio for, I don't know, about 6 years or so. And it is a 50 sheet wax paper palette. Oh, let me put it in the camera here. So there's 50 sheets of wax paper, and at the end of the night, when everybody's done, we just kind of roll them up like that, and you can start
like a
with
little
the
paint
new sheet. Little paint burrito. Yep. So let's go ahead. I realized as I was pointing out colors, I'm sorry it wasn't like zoomed in on them. Bahama blue, bright red, a little bit of black, phthalo blue, which is the indigo, deep yellow, looks like a school bus, craft yellow, which is the lemon color, white, and craft orange, which is the exact shade of a really nice pumpkin. So let's pick up our biggest brush to start. Take a sip of your beverage.
I've already taken like 6.
You took a sip before we toasted, or did we toast? I don't remember. Let's toast again.
You can never toast too many times.
We toast a lot. So let's toast to you guys joining up with the Gogh Box, painting along with us hopefully, or if not now, then a later date. And there was something else I was going to say, but I can't remember. So we'll toast to getting old and forgetting things. Cheers.
She almost forgot to take her drink. Woo!
Yeah. Okay. So my only rule in class, don't wash your brush in your wine glass. It's really easy for us because they kind of look like paint cups. So I'm going to keep mine far away. You do need a water cup. You will need an old towel or some paper towels. And my other rule is have fun. Be nice to yourself. Nobody expects you to be Da Vinci level, Michelangelo, any of those.
Now, if you are on the live stream and you do ask us a question via the
Post
chat
it,
feature,
yeah.
please do. Just be aware that we actually have I want to say probably about a 7 to 10 second, maybe even a 15-second delay between the time what we say comes through to you. We get your response pretty quickly, but it will be after you. Anyway, I'll be doing my best to keep an eye on it, but there will be a delay from the time you ask until we respond.
So we're not ignoring you.
We're not. We're not.
All right, so we're going to take the big guy here. Go ahead and dip it in your water cup. I like to push it around on the bottom of the cup to kind of loosen up the bristles. And then I'm going to dry it pretty good on my towel. So it's just a little bit damp. And we want to make a nice kind of reddish purple to start. And that is going to be your indigo blue or phthalo blue. Let me get that in the screen here. So that's going to be your indigo blue and red. Probably a little more red to the blue. I'll just put them together in the middle. I always save a little of the outside edge color in case we end up using other color, which we will. We'll use more phthalo blue on its own. So this looks pretty good.
Now, because this is a base that we're going to glaze over, the color is not as important as it is just being a little bit darker.
Yep. And I sometimes I tend not to overmix my colors. So a lot of times you'll see me in the studio, I just sort of blot them together. Because I like a streaky finish when I'm doing landscapes. It just keeps it a little more modern. So I've got a lot of paint on my brush from mixing it together. You'll end up with a big glob. I don't really want to start with a big glob, so I'm just going to swipe it on my palette somewhere. Or your towel, but if you swipe it on your palette, you can use it. So Paul and I are sharing a palette. Let me just make sure we're all in here. Little adjusting. I don't think people need to see my brushes more than they need to see the canvas and a little bit of the paint palette. Okay.
I think that's probably a good idea.
Yep.
Okay, don't wait for me.
Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to paint a sound wave. We did this in the last painting, and it is what it is. Let me access this. It's your back row of trees. It's your tree line. And I don't lift my brush from the canvas while I'm doing this. It's literally glued to it, and I just jiggle my brush up and down and just kind of move along as I go slowly. And I'm going to show you on the paper first. Sorry, I didn't mean to stab you with the canvas. So I just will set it down, and I'm going to pretend you're painting like a heart rate monitor or a sound wave. So obviously, sometimes the sound's going to go up. Or the heart rate. Sometimes it's going to go down. This is really dramatic compared to what's on the original painting. But I didn't lift my brush once while I was doing that. And then later on we're going to paint down in here. So it ends up looking like you've got a whole lot of trees back there without having to paint individual trees. So let's take this brush. And first I'm going to establish where I want my waterfall to go. So I'm going to leave a little gap. Like maybe I'll do one tree here and one tree here. The waterfall at the top is about 1 inch to 1.5 inches wide. So that's a nice good spot. And waterfalls over the years, they carve away at the land. So yes, it is going to dip. What you choose whether you want it really dramatic or not. So let's grab my sheet here. And we're ready to roll. We're ready to paint. Okay, so I'll just start at this point. And I'm going to work my way up the cliff. I'm going to get close to this upper left corner here. I'll try and get my left and right correct this time.
That's right. Last one.
That's left.
You'd be a good race car driver, Jenny. Turn left to go right. Turn left to go right.
So there's one side, and nice and dramatic little arch up there. And now I'm going to go across the canvas. On the original painting, I came down a bit, but you could technically come right up to this corner if you wanted it really dramatic. And just as you work your way, remember sometimes you're going to have some tall trees, sometimes they're going to be short. Don't worry about the bottom edge. Don't let that psych you out at all.
Psych! I don't know where that came from.
So what song is your sound wave playing tonight, Paul?
It is playing
46 and 2.
Yeah, I was 46 and 2. I was going to say Schism, but Sober is a good one. That was kind of one of my favorites to play when I was a kid in high school and just learning how to play guitar.
Yep, I remember when we got the Tool album and we were bumping around in Paul's 1984 Ford Bronco 2, rocking it. You had like this gigantic subwoofer system in the back, and
yes,
that's what we did when we were in college.
In the 90s.
We'd go to our painting class and then bump the subwoofer all the way to Izzy's or something, wherever we could afford.
That's right, Izzy's.
Back in the good old days. So you should have a nice tree line. Let's have a look at Paul's. He always does it a little differently than me.
Well,
I always
really
like his a little better. His is definitely, I guess for landscapes, I kind of like the rougher look like this. Nice job, Paul. And his is a little more purple than mine.
I don't know how that worked out.
I don't know, because I mixed our colors. Okay, so what I want us to do before we get too far along is we're going to set our, I guess it'd be like our horizon line down here. It's basically the water line where the little pool of water is going to go. It's about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom of the canvas. So if you were to divide this in thirds, just kind of guesstimate 1/3. And don't stress yourself out about getting it too straight. Here, I just use the skinny edge of the brush and just lightly, my hand is shaking, lightly move it all the way across.
Take it easy. Everything's going to be all right.
It's all the wine. It's the tool wine.
Can't be that much.
No, I haven't had enough yet. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sort of frame in where our waterfall goes. Now we paint white over the top of it, so if it ends up funny, don't worry about it at all because it's going to have a lot of white over the top. I just sort of sketch in the shape that I want it to be. Oh, there's a dog right next to me. They always have to make a visit. They're obsessed with this room. So I'm just going to sort of, on the paper, I sort of angled it out on the instruction sheet. And then this side, I'll just sort of do the same thing.
I don't know why our old dog, she always has to try to find the most difficult way to get out.
Yeah, she's been tripping over microphone cords for about the last month.
And she just hasn't figured it out yet.
She's like a bulldog. They're Shiba Inus. They're really aloof. And so getting them up here and showing them on the camera, would be kind of difficult. But a lot of people say, oh, it's Doge. And if you're familiar with the Doge meme, that's exactly what they look like. They're red. They are divas. They're a lot like cats.
And one of them made a guest vocal appearance on our video.
That's right.
We filmed a video last night, which we're going to be posting either later tonight or tomorrow. And he's managed to surprise.
You colored in your waterfall. See, he's jumping the gun. He's skipping ahead.
I'm having to do it my own way just a little bit.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of scratchy fill in the background here. I'm doing it fairly solid, but I am leaving a few little white gaps because when we glaze over it with the yellow, that's going to make what appears here to be this sort of bright orangey yellow color showing through. It actually, a lot of it will turn kind of brownish too, which is good. So here you can be kind of messy. You can skip around on the canvas. I know it's common to just want to take your time and make every single line perfect, but no, we want to do it Paul style, which is exactly how I'm doing it right now. Pretend you're Picasso for a minute, and you don't care where this brush takes you. Don't worry if you overlap into your water. That's going to get plenty of coats of paint. So we will be good.
Now, one of the things when we were looking at pictures of
down here too.
Toketee Falls earlier today, the cliff.
We don't wait to the last minute or anything.
No. But we do like to give ourselves a little refresher, make sure we're doing the right things. But I really noticed that the cliff around the falls really does have a very vertical grain to the stone.
So, oh yeah, it does. That's right.
So we want to make sure we kind of make our brushes go in that.
I think you were trying to point out the things I missed in the painting.
No, I was not. I haven't painted it either. So, I mean, you have. I haven't painted it. So
I haven't painted this one. I think it was June when I designed it.
That's how long we've been working on this project.
Yeah.
Actually, longer than that.
We've been discussing it for like
2 years?
Probably. Maybe longer. So if you have to remix color, it doesn't have to be exact. I don't worry about that too much. I've remixed a couple times, and so some areas I definitely have a more violet color going on. Some areas it's more of a reddish blackberry smoothie color.
But the more of that you have, the more shadows and highlights you've pre-built in without having to come back and paint them later.
Yep.
Which we aren't going to do on this painting, so that's a good thing.
Yep. I'm using a pretty thin coat. I do want this to dry pretty quick. You can always build texture wherever you want it later on, but for these first little bits, I'm brushing it on kind of thin. The nice thing about acrylic paint is it will dry really fast, usually 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how thick the paint is. And then you can accelerate that with a hairdryer, which we do in the studio a lot. It's like a lot of times I'm leading 32 people, which is our full house there. And we've got to move on, and not everyone's canvas is dry, but I can't, hold up the whole class for like 4 people. So I will direct them to the hairdryer, and it'll dry your painting within like 30 seconds. So when I'm designing paintings, I always have a hairdryer nearby because then I can figure out what I need to do next without waiting too long. So let's have a look at Paul's. Very blue and definitely more of a scratchy feel to it. Yeah, they're different.
So the difference.
Different yet the same.
The difference that we'll run into is when I start glazing mine with the yellow, mine's going to take on some more greenish tones versus yours, which will take on more warmer browns.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just going to feel like maybe a little bit different time of fall.
Yep. All right, so moving along here, I'm going to mix, I have this kind of reddish purple up in here, right up in here. I'm going to mix more of a bluish true violet, and I'm going to paint this little landform down here, which will be very imperfect for quite a while. It's just kind of a placeholder. So I'll take my brush, don't need to wash it off, I'm just going to pull a little more of my indigo blue in. So I'll just kind of tilt this around. It looks really dark on camera. It is definitely a true, deep grape soda purple.
Ooh, grape soda.
It does get coated over with another coat of paint later, so don't worry if it's not the exact shade you wanted the first time around. Grape soda. Have you had a grape soda float?
I have.
So good. Now I really want one.
What I don't like is beer floats.
Ugh, that sounds
Everybody
horrible.
like posts them from Pinterest and stuff, and I've tried it like 2 or 3 times. It just doesn't work.
Except you can do like a Guinness float with
No, I tried
a
it.
little Bailey's.
Oh, with the Baileys, yeah.
Super good.
That would be
Okay.
good.
That'll be St. Patty's Day. Okay, so for this little itty bitty landform, it just kind of is a space filler down in here. Sort of brings the foreground in a little bit.
Space filler and a time killer.
Space filler and a time killer. He's right. So I'm gonna start above my water line, which the water line on this one's a little lower than the one I'm painting right now. So it's gonna go maybe half an inch or an inch above the water line.
Okay.
And then it'll come down, not all the way to center, but just a little bit left of center-ish, kind of, sort of. If you bring it all the way to center, it's not going to be wrong at all.
Bring it.
So I'll just jump up above and make a mark. It's about an inch-ish. And I'm just going to do some little wavy lines coming down towards the center. Mine, on this one, it ended up going all the way to center. Because it's pretty close to dead center right there, actually. That's okay. Allows me to put more
Well, that's how we
colored leaves on it.
That's how we make sure it
Go ahead
feels
and
like
fill
a
it in.
creek instead of a lake, though, too.
Yeah.
It narrows it down as it comes.
So are you calling this a creek now? I wonder what it's really
It's
called.
a pool. It's a pool and then a
pool.
creek. I mean, all waterfalls kind of they don't really spill into lakes too often.
Yeah, you're right. You're Mr. Muir.
John Muir?
John Muir, yeah.
Fantastic author.
I think
back
you're
in the day.
him reincarnated.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Paul has always lived nature and national forests and all that. And in fact, when we met, he was going to become a park ranger. And that didn't happen. He became an artist. It worked good for me. So, let's wash our brush now. Grab your water cup. And this time, I'm just going to kind of dab the brush on the bottom of the cup. Up and down. Knock off the excess paint pigment. You can have a little residue on there at all times. It's not going to cause too much of an issue. So your water is going to look like a weird cloudy wine. Speaking of which,
that's actually a good thing though, because as when we keep going in the painting, we actually want to pick up
add into my tattoo
the ambient colors that are in the painting, and using the dirty water helps bring those ambience in.
Yep, there's some more of his BSing.
No, it's legit stuff. I don't know if
it
there's
is. Yeah, he's actually. We've watched several television painters, not just Bob Ross, who swear by using tinted paint water or even a tinted canvas. So now we are going to use our Bahama Blue, which is your turquoise, and we're going to mix it with your phthalo blue, that's the indigo, and you'll get a color that we had in the sky last week for the summer bonfire painting, and it's the one I kind of referred to it as like 1970s denim. It's actually a tiny bit darker. I'm going to blot mix in there. So then it's really marbled, and when I paint it on the canvas, it's going to have multicolored streaks in the water. So I like to do that rather than have it be all one plain color. So Paul's going to use that too. And I'm just going to go back and forth. First I'll kind of trace off my horizon line, cover that original line up.
Now one of the keys to painting water, if you don't mind me stepping in on this, is when we're trying to do a pool like this or a lake or any other kind of flat water, river even, we want to make sure our brush strokes stay nice and horizontal.
Yeah, definitely.
I like to tell people that water has one purpose in life, and that is to become horizontal.
Hey, that's your purpose too.
Wow.
Just kidding, that was really bad. But not untrue.
I always bite my tongue on that one when I'm talking about it, but wow.
It just reminds me of a joke.
There is a joke about that. There is.
Stephen Wright.
Yeah. Is that who it was?
Yeah. He says something like the dancers, something about dancing. Dancing is your ultimate goal is to become horizontal. I botched it completely, but it's really funny. I'm gonna take a little. I promise. I'm gonna take a little Bahama blue. I just dip my brush right in it without washing it, and I streak that in there just for some color variance. We do give this a nice greenish coat.
What are we doing? Some extra Bahama blue?
Yeah, I just streaked in a little for lightness.
You can also do that with a little bit of white as long as you let the other colors mix with it.
Yep. I do have some white canvas poking through, and that is because later on we're going to, unless you really don't like the deep green, it's kind of it's not really emerald. Let me hold up the original painting. It's better to see it. I don't know, I guess it's kind of swamp green. It's actually is a lot like our color called phthalo green, which is the green version of the indigo phthalo blue. So go ahead and brush that in there. And if you want to wrap color around the sides, this would be a good time to do it because we need maybe a little more drying. Mine's actually pretty dry. How's yours, Paul? For the upper part.
Upper part, I've kind of got, I've got a couple little spots that if I start up in the sky and work my way from the side I started on across, I think I'll be good.
Yeah. Well, what I could do, because we've got a fan going and the window's open and the lighting in here makes it really, really hot. My upper lip keeps sweating. What I'll do is, you guys might have yours drying a little slower than ours if you're painting along, because you don't have all these environmental factors coming into the mix. So what I'll do is I'll talk to you about these fir trees, because I can talk forever about painting fir trees because people ask all the time. People have a lot of trouble with them. It's probably the number one thing that people want to discuss. So yes, we'll have to do a tree class.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna wash my big brush. This time we really want to get it pretty clean because the next color we use on it is going to be a lighter yellow. If you end up getting a little purplish in your sky, it's not going to be a problem. So don't stress out about that. If you feel like you really want to change your water, you absolutely can. I'm not going to keep you from that. When I dry it, when I'm trying to get excess paint color off when I've washed it in paint water, I'll a lot of times just fold my towel over the top and just pull it through, and that helps knock off any extra paint residue. So big brush is ready for glazing when we do that next. I am going to move this out of the way and give you a little fir tree tutorial. Now these fir trees on this painting are quite a bit smaller than the summer bonfire painting we did, which can be easier for some people and harder for others. I am positive looking at this that I used my number 8 brush, and I did the thing I do where I do the tree trunk, and then I came through holding the brush, so I'm using the skinny edge, did some dabs on the top, and then I turn it horizontally and I just sort of whipped through. So these are off in the distance. You can have some trees that are not so beautiful. There are no perfect trees in nature, really. They're hard to find. We have several friends with Christmas trees that grow Christmas trees, and we've gone to their properties and hunted the perfect tree. Even though they're groomed and trimmed, it is really hard to find the perfect one. So don't try to paint them absolutely perfect. Okay, so I kind of want this in the picture a little bit. There we go. So I'll use a dark color. I'll just use blue so it shows up on the camera here. And what I do is here's we got our top of our land, which actually looks more like this, our sound wave thing. And I plant the tree trunks. I go from the ground up. Some people like to go from the sky down. Everybody will have their own preference. What do you do? Oh, you don't do a tree trunk.
Actually, when I'm doing this type of tree, I do, and I do like to go from the ground up because I always think that's the way a tree grows. So that's the way I'm going to grow
just stick with nature.
Yep.
So let me do a little bigger version because I see on the screen these are very tiny for you guys to look at. So we're going to do a monster tree in here. Boom, just like that. So at the top, you've got the corner of your brush, which you can use for little tiny dots, just like this. And the lighter you press, the tinier your dots will be. But at the top of a fir tree, there's always that one part that just stands straight-ish up. And that's where, if you have it as a Christmas tree, that's where you put your star. And they're not always straight. We usually have to trim it. So at the top of the tree, I'm going to do that little row of dots that make that one top part of the tree that stands straight up. Now I'm going to turn my brush and use it horizontally, using the thin edge of the brush right along here. And I'm just literally zigzagging back and forth with tight little zigzags. This actually is a very similar technique to the way you do yours, Paul.
Now these ones on this painting look like we don't have very much taper to them at all.
Not a whole lot, but you can. So what he's talking about is your tree being more conical shaped. Right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, these are fairly straight up and down with not a big dramatic triangle shape. You could do them more of a triangle shape too. That's fine. And the thing you want to avoid, I talked about this last time. We get so many of these in the studio. They're easy to fix. But we get the fishbone tree that looks like this. And then the painter is looking at it, kind of a funny expression on their face, figuring out what looks wrong. I don't know how to fix it. It's actually really easy to fix. So remember the little dots I did at the top? I'll do those on the top of this one so it's nice and pointy. And then I'm going to come through and just add a whole lot of fuzzy tree boughs. And see, I'm dabbing my brush up and down.
This is one of those things from the preconceived notions of what things look like.
Yep.
Or a lot of times it's an echo effect of what we learned in grade school, and we haven't practiced painting since then, so we revert back to what we know.
Yep, we do. Definitely. And what I've seen in the studio is a lot of perfectly spaced tree boughs where it's probably because you're really taking your time to do them. So they'll be close together like they should be, but there's always the exact distance between each one. I can't even do it. And those are not too off track. To help with those, I will have the students come in and just randomize them a little bit. Just dab on some foliage. It doesn't have to be a tree bough. It could be just a cluster of pine needles. And then I'll make it a little wider at the bottom.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Are we doing these and then the glaze, or are we doing the glaze and then these?
We are doing the glaze first, but to kill some time and allow our canvas to dry, I thought I'd go over the little tree tutorial first. So we're not going to do these yet. Next steps are going to be glazing and doing some other stuff. This is one of the later things we do.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. And then one of the things I talked about, I'll do this real quick. One of the things I talked about in the last class is droopy tree boughs. So a lot of people will do their tree trunk and then their tree boughs are really droopy. And the trees just kind of look a little sad. So what I do with mine to make them happy little trees is I actually sort of curve them up a little bit on the ends. And really there's so many different varieties of fir trees out there. In the gorge up by Skamania Lodge, I'm always looking at their trees up there for reference. They actually grow like this, a lot of them.
They actually start pretty straight out to the side and then
so maybe like down here, and then it kind of gradually goes to a little point up here. I've seen some students do theirs like that too. I always have a hard time Obviously, it's not a very good-looking tree. But yes, they do. It just must be some variety of tree that grows.
There's so many different types of trees, and I think a lot of times we keep it simple by keeping it with 1 or 2 different varieties when we paint, because it gives us the idea of what we're trying to show people without having to be too specific about, is this a Douglas fir, a larch, is it a pine, is it a red cedar? You know, they all have their different looks. So
yep, they
we kind of go with generic fir tree.
Generic fir tree with a little bit of a upward turn to the boughs, so it's kind of happy. Looks like a little mustache. Happy little mustache. Or some kind of weird bird. Okay, so let's wash this brush off if you were practicing along with me. And this video will be recorded and posted also, right? It's going to like save to YouTube, so...
Yeah, as soon as we're done with this, it's going to be saved on there for anybody to watch.
Right! Woohoo! Okay, I'm going to set this aside and we are ready to glaze. So if yours is still wet, I would say pause us, but it's a live video right now. If you're watching the recorded version, pause it, grab a hairdryer, and give it a little blast. So I'm going to take a little sip here.
I'm going to give a little blast to my wine glass, which is
Give
kind
a
of
blast. Oh, let's talk about these real quick. Our coasters. So each of you that subscribe to the box, we got these in, and it's a cool cardboard coaster, kind of like what you get at McMinimans. I collect those. I love them so much. But I found this company that makes them. I did the design. I drew it all up. I put the Aries constellation in there because that's Van Gogh's birthday sign. And so we got a little Mount Hood in there, a little Great Wave off Kanagawa, and then Starry Night mixed with the Northwest theme with all the fir trees. So you can color these up, color pencils or pens. I thought it made a nice little fun thing to color. But the biggest thing is on the back. If you could read this tiny little text that goes all the way around here. It does give our studio location and website, but it also says, bring this coaster to your next in-studio class at Van Gogh and get $5 off your first beverage. And we just happen to have some wines that are $5 a glass, so there you go. So yes, look for those in your crate. And as customers leave their class, the staff will sometimes pass those out as you're walking out the door too. So if you are leaving the class and they don't give you one, just say, hey, where's my coaster? Jenny said, I get it. So, okay, let's take that biggest brush. Mine's nice and clean. And now we are going to glaze. So, the instructions say glaze deep yellow over the entire canvas except the waterfall. We're going to leave that white. And you don't glaze over the ground down here. So, it's just going to be the sky, these trees, leaving the waterfall white. So, probably what I'll have you do, just to be safe, is just mark off the top of the waterfall. If you accidentally glaze over it, it's not going to be a big deal. So please don't worry yourself too much. So I'm just going to treat this like a wood stain or something. Thin coat. I don't have a lot of paint on the brush. Bring it right down into these rocks. Again, if you accidentally go over here, don't worry about it. You won't have a yellow waterfall in the end, I promise. And as far as like the direction of your brush strokes, I don't really think it matters. Paul's probably painting him pretty haphazard.
Yeah, I think that on something like this where we have a distance and a waterfall, a lot of times we'll have mistiness, and mistiness
I
creates
love the mistiness.
all kinds of different textures.
And in the sky too. My favorite technique in the sky is kind of do this little scooping motion, because then you get this sort of cloud-like appearance. And we're going to put a little white up in here in just a bit to create this. Let me show you on the original. To create this sort of light glow through here, which looks like there's maybe some light clouds involved. Okay, so let's glaze away. So you'll see as you're going over the purple that you created, it's turning kind of a brownish color, like a, I don't know, it's definitely more eggplant.
So purple and yellow.
Like a less purple eggplant.
Yeah, purple and yellow are opposites on the color wheel.
Yep.
So they're going to neutralize each other to an extent. And usually when you've got that happening, you end up with either tones of brown or tones of gray. Another example would be red and green. You end up with more of a reddish tone, and orange and blue Sometimes you end up with like a greenish brown with orange and blue.
Yeah.
Just depends on how much color you use of each of the two.
Paul really loves color mixing and experimenting and the color wheel and what colors react well to each other. And so his classes are pretty fun for students because they do learn a little bit about, hey, if you mix this particular green with this particular red, you actually get purple.
That's a rarity.
Has to be phthalo green and just plain old primary red. And you have to be careful with it. Oh, hey, school bus yellow. So yes, I hope that I didn't mess that up for you. It is your deep yellow that you're glazing with. I don't know if I said that. I apologize. Your craft yellow would probably cover it a little too much. Deep yellow it is.
Now, if you're buying your own paints to follow along with, one thing I recommend you do is whenever you get a new color, grab a piece of, maybe a piece of your palette paper works good if you've got one of these palettes that we're using, or just an extra canvas, and just play around with the colors and see how they work together, because even though we're using phthalo blue by the manufacturer that we use, that doesn't mean that phthalo blue from another manufacturer reacts exactly the same way with the other colors. So
yeah,
it's a good idea to, before you start putting it on a canvas with a finished painting, play around with it, see what it does. Same thing with brushes. Play around with them. See what they want to do. See how they interact with the canvas.
Yeah, I went through, I think that over the life of Fine Gogh, I've probably tried out maybe 8 to 10 different brush brands. And I really like the Simply Simmons because I feel like they are not too floppy and flexible, but they're also not overly stiff. So they're kind of that right in between. I hate working with really floppy brushes. And so I would rather work with a brush that's too stiff.
And for a
floppy
brush that's at a really good price point, I feel like the quality's really
yeah,
good.
Great. They don't seem to fray out too fast. In fact, some of these big brushes we've used for ages. So I want to add the little light glow at the top of the sky, right at the top of the waterfall. Up in here, your yellow may have already dried a bit too much. So you might try taking your deep yellow school bus right here and brush it over this spot here just to kind of refresh the paint, make it a little more wet. And then I'll take just the tiniest bit of white, a little more than that, about like that. So you can see I don't have a whole lot on the brush. And I'm going to brush it starting from the waterfall. So that kind of diminishes the line there, which is nice. We don't have to work hard to cover that up. And I'm just sort of brushing upward. And I'll just kind of brush at an angle off to the right here. I don't go over the trees too much. You could a little though. It'll just look like there's a little fog coming in, which is pretty cool actually. Paul does a really good job with that.
I actually really like to soften those trees at the top of a ridge like that.
Sure.
Especially like if we've got, can I point over onto your canvas real quick? If you kind of just do it in and around this area, it helps draw the eye kind of more into the
Let's see if I can hold this up.
Area.
There's a glare from the wet paint. So hard to see what he's saying. But yeah, a little white up in here. Feel free to brush it around, let your brush sort of run out of paint. And then whatever you've got left, you can kind of brush over the tops of some of these trees. Real lightly. I'm not pressing hard at all. If you press hard, you're going to get that sort of look, which obviously that just kind of looks like looks like I just deleted a bunch of trees. I'm going to show you how to fix that. I just cleaned my brush, and I'll take and kind of push that paint off. And then I'll take my rag or paper towel, and you can use it as a paint tool.
The most important thing is don't panic.
Easy fix. Yeah, you can fix just about anything with acrylic paint. I've had to do it all. Okay, let's see how that's looking. Good, good. So I think what our next step is going to be...
So pour me some more wine? Can you
Oh,
hand me the wine
yeah, I
bottle?
can handle that.
Oh, bartender. Can I have some more?
He wants more! It is. I have it chilling on ice because when I have white wine, I have to have it super duper cold. My biggest pet peeve is when someone pours me a glass at a bar and it's like room temperature, which I have had happen before. Not at a wine bar, but at a bar.
I gotta say, the more I drink this, the more I really dig that apricot-y tone. It's
yeah,
really that apricot
at first,
stone fruit.
my first sip of it was definitely, wow, that's not quite what I expected, but I didn't know what to expect. So,
I mean, when the lead
I'm
singer,
impressed. I like it.
lead singer of Tool starts making wine, I guess you're not gonna expect your typical wine.
Yeah. So one of the tasting notes said it's chaotic, just like you would expect Maynard to make.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Oof, oof. Let's see what's next.
When it not chaotic in a weird way though.
Yeah.
It's not like sometimes I'll have like a sour beer or something where somebody tried really, really, really hard to be unique, and it's just like that didn't work.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna wash this big brush off. You don't have to wash it super great because the next colors we have on it are going to be blue and yellow. So you'll already have a little yellow on your brush. It's not a big deal. But this time, let me say it, we're not going to use school bus. We're going to use the craft yellow. You do need to save a little bit of this for tree leaves later on. But this makes that sort of deep sea green that is on the pond there. So I'll mix. It's a little more blue to yellow. I don't even know, it's almost a teal. Actually reminds me a lot of our one of our wedding colors. In the 90s, teal and lavender, that was the thing. So there, I've got a pretty good tealy color there, which, sorry, I think it was out of the picture a little bit. There you go. Yours can be a little more blue than that, or it can be a little more on the yellow side. It really doesn't matter. Or you can keep your water blue if you really like the contrast between the yellow sky and the blue water. Leave your water blue. Okay, so I'm just going to glaze over. I've got a wave going on. I think that I get some land stuff in there to cover that anyways. Glazing over.
I'm going to do a little bit different take on this if you don't mind.
I don't mind. I am going to end up refreshing this rock, so don't worry about like painting around it and cutting it down. In fact, if you want to cut it down, now would be the time. If you feel like leaving some little streaks of blue showing through there, that's not a bad thing at all. In fact, that's kind of a nice idea. Let's see what you're doing. I can't really tell yet. He's experimenting.
I'm just starting with kind of some vertical streaks and then going side to side to kind of smudge them out. Trying to pick up some of the texture in the above.
Uh-huh. Oh, like it's reflecting down on the water.
Not reflecting, just mimicking.
Okay. So you can occasionally mix a bluer version of this color and streak that in there too. And that's going to give you some nice depth and make it look like, hey, maybe there's some areas where there's some ripples or just deeper parts of the water. It just makes it more interesting looking. And definitely, I'm keeping with the the horizontal brush strokes back and forth because water does sit flat most of the time. Although this would be moving a little bit under here. So you might have a few more little rapidy looking things. And then I'm going to take the same green that we started with, so your indigo, the one I called the wedding teal color right here. And I want to not have a ton on my brush, so I'll just kind of swipe it off. I want to put it sporadically into the cliff face. You can see it here in the background. It's not this light green stuff going on. It's more these vertical streaks that are throughout the background, and that's just adding kind of a mossy color and a natural color to the rocks, and also tying together this green that you've got going on down here. So let's go ahead and go with that. So I'm using my brush vertically. I'm going to wipe off some more paint. I feel like I had a little bit too much. I also feel like it could be a little more yellow.
Be very loose with this.
Very loose, yeah. No planning out anything. Just these vertical ridges, which is like Paul said. We looked at pictures today, and the stones around here, they're actually really cool looking. And their formation is like that. I wonder what causes that.
It's the type of stone, the way it breaks. I don't know.
The way the water has pelted it. The climate, it could do all kinds of things. So this side already looks a little more interesting than this side. It looks like, hey, there's some moss.
Less is more, too.
Mm-hmm.
On this, I've seen sometimes people get a little too busy, and then what happens is those things that we have put on lose their dramatic effect.
Yep, it's true. So you could also play around with, if you wanted a secondary type of green in here. So this one that we made, this sort of teal color, that was your craft yellow, which is your light lemon yellow, with the phthalo blue, your indigo. Let's see what happens if you mix deep yellow, the one I've been calling the school bus yellow, with phthalo blue. Let's see what green that gets us. Definitely a more yellow green, actually, kind of more of a, to me this is more of a mossy green. Let's do a combination of the two colors. Why not? We'll just deviate from the instructions a little bit. You can see the two greens. I don't know how well it shows on the camera. One is very, very teal, and this one is very, very more, it's more on the army green, mossy green side. So, and I have a lot of paint on the brush, so I'll swipe it off. This is all dry in here. It's a nice thing about acrylic paint drying fast. You can use some of my green too, Paul, if you want. So I do like to put this in here too. I don't want to cover up all of the spots that have the bright yellow because we worked hard to leave those. You could even put some on the water just if you want to add a different level of green in there. Some streaks of it. Why not? It's getting crazy. It's the Tool music.
You can barely hear it, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We're busy painting.
The new album's actually pretty good.
I didn't know they were coming out with a new album.
Yeah, it came out in August.
I don't listen to Tool very much anymore. My blood pressure doesn't like it.
All right. So you should have a little green moss or a lot going on here with the vertical brush strokes.
I've got one of those funky little spots that the paint won't stick.
Yeah, so that, let's see, let's point it out. Bring your canvas over here. Let's see what you're doing. Oh, he's got this beautiful water.
So
I really love that color.
Right there.
Yep, so a lot of times if you have a spot on your canvas that's too wet, I see the struggle all the time, and you try to brush a second coat to cover it, it will not cover. It just leaves the hole there. And what you have to do is wait about 5 minutes and work on some other part of your canvas, and then go back and that will cover up just fine. So I really like that. You've got a lot of Bahama blue going in there. So tell us what colors you mix in there. Just more Bahama blue?
Yeah,
for
just
your water?
when we had the green glaze on it that we put on.
It looks more interesting than my water.
But with the green glaze on, I just came back with some of the Bahama and streaked it in and let those two colors mix together. It's actually a really nice technique when we're doing seascapes and tropical water.
Let's try it. So I've got wet paint down here. Hey, I like that. That's nice. I guess you're a good person to have on here.
I like to play with the colors.
And he and I, we have to paint each other's paintings a lot in the studio. Like, I'll have to teach some of his, he'll have to teach some of mine, and we almost always will be like, hey, if you guys want to change something up, I'll show you how to do this. So we're always changing each other's painting to kind of try out something a little different.
I think also,
I like it, looks good.
Beyond that, it's more just like we're making the paintings our own.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I mean, even you guys, that's
really
what you
like
should
that.
be doing at home is, saying like, oh, I like more turquoise there, or maybe I like less turquoise. Make it your own.
Make it your own.
We're just giving you a guideline to work from.
For sure. Okay, let's get some trees on there. And the instructions say to use the smallest brush, but I was using my number 8. I'll do a couple with each brush so you can see the difference. I tend to like the number 8 a little better. Some of you might like the smallest one. And looking at this, I may have started with the small brush and worked in the number 8, but I see a lot of number 8 type of brush strokes. So these are the little trees. I try to make them different sizes. Some go off the canvas. Like here's a big one, and it's going off the canvas, so there's more to this picture than we can see. I'll scoot this up here. And like this one goes off the canvas. And where they start, it's natural to just want to plant them like right at the top. Every single one starts right at the same spot, but actually some maybe grow in a lower ridge so that they're going to start down here, whereas like this one maybe is a little bit higher ridge and the tree grew from way up here. So think about that. Try to make it random. That's always really, really good when you're painting a nature scene. So with that being said, let's start off with the number 4 brush. I said I'd show you a couple with each brush, and I want to dip this in water just to get it kind of flexible and dry it off on the towel. This one I try to dry the metal ferrule because a lot of times you'll have a rogue drop of water on there, and as you're painting it'll slowly work its way down the brush and you'll find it on your canvas, and that's never very fun. So I do like to actually dip the tip of the bristles in some water and mix a drop of water with the paint. I'm going to use the second green I made, which was the, let me pick this up real quick. That was the school bus yellow and the indigo blue. I really like that green a lot. And now let's figure out where we want to plant these. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I have like 8 on the original. You can do as many or as few as you like. You may hate doing trees. Let's start with one that is way far away that you can easily cover or forget about. So I'll do a little tree trunk here. A little tiny one. At the top, I'll do a few little dots for the little star top of the tree. And then I'm going to give it a little tiny mustache. And I'll just sort of zigzag my way through. I don't take a ton of time with these tiny ones. There's no need to. Boom! Done! Let's see, that's so small, it's really hard for you guys to see. There it is! Ugh, everything's reversed.
So one thing I like to tell people when we're doing something like this, though, is don't go through and do a whole bunch of trunks at once.
Yeah.
Because
some people do that. They'll place all
they'll put like 10 or 15, and then they realize that the tree is really something that's really difficult for them. And while they need to practice them, maybe they need to practice them on a piece of paper or a scratch piece of canvas, leftover piece of canvas or something like that.
Yep.
Rather than trying to do them all at once. So I think kind of like 2 or 3 is probably a bare minimum on this. So, but do them one at a time. Do a trunk, paint the tree, do another one, paint the tree. And if you really like to do it, maybe do 6 or 7 trees. But I think more than 6 or 7 on this particular canvas could overwhelm it.
Let's have a look at Paul's. He made a, it's not black. It's actually, what color? You mixed orange and dark blue, right?
Yep.
So he mixed the orange and dark blue, and he's got, I really like this color of tree. You're just the master at trees. It looks really nice. And they just sort of fade out. He scrubs them out down in here. So you don't really see the bottom of the tree like it's just poking out of nowhere. And that always looks really good. So do you want to show your tree technique? Can you reach over and show us?
I mean, we could switch seats real quick.
Okay, let's switch seats.
Just don't scoot back because Soup's right there.
Oh, the dog is sleeping behind us. Okay, I'll just stand off to the side.
Okay.
Hi, girl.
So let me get my color mixed up here. I just need to get a little bit more. And I do like to use the orange and dark blue, a little bit more blue than orange. And what they do is they kind of neutralize each other and give themselves this nice little neutral tone. But I guess I'll do one right over here. And I do start with the trunk in this case. I'll start at the bottom here and just kind of sketch it up. But then I just really kind of take the brush and just very lightly. And
you're using the number 8.
I'm using the number 8. And just kind of really kind of just sketch and tap. Kind of like in the right-hand side of this one better than the left, but that's the way it goes.
It's because we put you right on camera.
No. And then as I kind of start getting closer and further down in here, it looks really unnatural to kind of just leave that line there.
The floating
And then
tree.
you can see it's just kind of like,
It
why
looks like
is
it's
it there?
like being abducted by aliens that came out of the
So
ground.
then what I'll do is I'll just wipe my brush off and just kind of take some of this excess paint, kind of start to smudge out some of the bottom parts.
And just have it become one with the cliff.
Yeah.
Very nice. I like
Just
that.
like that.
Very good. I knew this was more of a Paul painting than a Jenny painting. Sorry, Suki. I didn't know she was sleeping behind my chair.
Yeah, she's been pretty chill tonight.
Okay. They're getting used to this whole camera setup. So I'm going to try that with Paul's number 8 brush. And I'm going to use the green just to make it like the original. Do little taps at the top and then exactly what he did. Where you're just going side to side. Let your brush just naturally run out of paint. You can flip it over. There's more paint on that side. And I did officially run out. And then I did like how he sort of scrubbed out the bottom. If you wanted, you could do a combination of this greenish color that we have on the original painting coupled with some of the darker ones that Paul did. So that was the indigo blue mixed with orange. You know, I'll do a few on here so you can see what it would look like.
You don't want to use very much orange. Just a little tiny bit. Just a little
What do
tiny
they
bit.
get if they use too much orange?
A really intense brown.
Hey, sometimes you might want that.
Not usually in your trees.
So this one over here, I don't like it when I can see a lot of tree trunk. Let me see if I can hold that up there. It's in person, you can see it more, but this middle one here, I have a lot of tree trunk exposed. And you can see that with some varieties of trees, but I like to, with my landscape paintings, not have a lot of it showing. I keep putting my arm in the paint. So I'm going to do a couple green ones on this side of the waterfall just to match it up a bit. Maybe I'll do one. Dot, dot, dot. I feel like these are way easier than doing larger trees. A little more freedom to be messy. And now I'm going to wash my brush and I'll mix up Paul's color.
I've seen people even like on little trees like this, literally just do a vertical line for the trunk and then literally just little horizontal stripes.
Yeah.
And that actually on a little tree that looks fine.
Mm-hmm.
These are maybe a little bit too large for that to work out really well, but if you were doing some of those background little peaky trees, then that would work out really well actually.
So this actually makes kind of a slate color, brownish slate color. And that was the dark blue and orange. I'm going to tuck a little one right in here. So this tree, maybe it's more in the foreground. It grew lower down on the ridge, so it's closer to the viewpoint of you standing over here. I like mixing that up. Thanks, Paul, for your little hint and lesson. All right. Dot, dot, dot. You can make the noises. This looks like it should be on the Ewok planet, Endor.
It does.
Alright, let me have one that goes off the canvas. So this is like a big tall one, and we're just seeing the bottom half of it. I feel like I need one over here.
Scrubby, scrubby, scrubby.
I think scrubbing out the bottom is perfect.
I think that's.
And you might have to wipe your brush off.
Yeah, you might have to wipe your brush off, but I think that's one of the things that I see when people paint trees that makes it feel very
Placed.
uncomfortable. Yeah, it's like you want trees to be rooted. You know, they need to be grounded somewhere.
Oh yeah, you kind of did that in the last painting too.
Yeah, and if you just have a trunk coming down and stopping,
then it looks like it's coming from down here and it was abducted by aliens and it's just floating
away.
So there, I like this a lot. I could keep going and adding more trees. I could make a slightly oranger color of this weird brown that I made and just have all kinds of varieties because you do see that in nature. Lots of different color varieties, especially in the fall. So let's go ahead and let me see, what are we going to do next? Trying to follow the instructions exactly as I have them. Okay. going to do now is we're going to refresh this little landmass, because as I painted around it, now it kind of looks like it and the water meet, but it should look like this comes in front of the water. And then I have a little landmass over here, and then there's one down here. It's kind of like a match of this one, but smaller. So that you'll want to do with your biggest brush. And this is going to help cover up if you've got this funky area here where the water meets the land and it just doesn't quite look right. I'm going to grab us some more phthalo blue.
That's empty.
Is it? You can always get some more out. Empty, you say? Got like half a tablespoon out of there. You're the one who throws the paint bottles away in the studio.
It's me.
So I'm going to make the dark purple again. Very similar to what we painted originally. Kind of more of a bluish color. Just like this one, actually. Grape soda, I called it. So there. That's pretty close. And I'll just clean this up and make it look like it goes out over the water a little more. Yay. Brush that down.
Really digging this, listening to Tool and painting. I mean, why not?
Why not? We're drinking his wine. Okay, so this little landmass over here is in line with the water, although you could drop it down a little bit, and that would look really good. And it's probably 1.5 inches above that water horizon line. Similar shape to this guy, where it just starts up high and kind of climbs down towards the base of the waterfall. So here, let's make a mark. Let's go about 1.5 inches above the water and just meander. The trees are going to be growing out of this, or at least one tree, all the way down across. And then, like I said, you could come down a little lower for the bottom if you want. I'll just kind of a little bit further across here. And let's draw our last little one before we color everything in. So that one just, it overlaps this a little bit and kind of comes down to about here. There, I'll make a mark. Just draw it in real quick. So I have a little more water area on my new one. You can see by at least 1/2 inch or so. So I have a little bit bigger landform there. And I'm going to fill both of those in. It's funny, I thought I heard Suki snoring earlier, and I was like, I was looking at her table, but she's not in here. But you were in here. She likes to be wherever I am, because I am her master. Hachi doesn't really have a master.
He is the master.
He is the master. Okay, that looks pretty good. And let's have a look here. Wash off the brush. We're going to make the pale green that you see. It's kind of a yellowish green. You can see it up in here and down in here. It's just various shrubbery things. And I'm going to use, of course, my number 8 brush, my favorite. And color-wise, we are going to mix. Remember earlier when we made the teal, the wedding teal? So that was the dark indigo blue and the craft yellow, your light lemon yellow. And we're going to mix those two together, only this time we're going to use quite a lot more yellow. So you're going to end up with kind of a, it's like a split pea green. Pretty light, pretty yellow. I use a lot. It's kind of like the color of a 1970s Volkswagen bus. It's vintage Volkswagen green.
Almost seafoamy.
Yeah, well, not.
Almost.
Yeah, if it had white, it would definitely be like, here's white with it. Yeah, then we kind of got a seafoam. You don't need to do that. Just playing around. Okay, so we're going to use that color. You will have a glob of paint on your brush from mixing, so I'll do that.
Actually,
so I match
like
you.
guacamole.
Guacamole, that's the perfect color. Yeah. Like I said, vintage Volkswagen green. So I'll brush off a little on my palette so I have less paint on the brush. hand that over to Paul.
Thank you, dear.
You're welcome. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have, up in here, I just dab on some little mossy bits. Maybe growing along the ledge. Maybe at the base of these trees here and there. I do little clusters of them together. Not pressing very hard. I just want like 3 hairs and some air. So you're not getting a big glob of paint. These are, I guess, kind of like lichens and things that would... Maybe they're shrubs that are growing on the cliffside. Floating. It seems kind of weird because they're floating, but we'll put the tree in there and they'll sort of fit in. Like I said, not a lot of paint, not a lot of pressure. Cluster them together because it will look really strange if you try to polka dot them and you end up with all this like weird spacing in between. So now I'm going to come through and fix those. And I want to have them grow like this is some kind of shrub that's growing right along here, right up to the waterfall. It's okay if your rock color mixes with it a bit. That's just going to kind of shade these naturally on the bottom. Happy little accident. We got a little Chris Cornell on now. I'll drink to you, Chris. Okay.
You know what? I found out something very interesting about Chris Cornell.
Tell us.
So, Jeff Buckley.
Yep.
Another very...
my very favorite musician.
Yes, one of our very, very, very favorite musicians. He played on his... He died between his first and second album. His second album... Jeff Buckley did. Was released after he passed away. And one of the several of the songs...
Is that Sketches? Is it called Sketches for My Sweetheart?
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. And several of the songs in that album, he played a 12-string Dan Electro, which is a guitar. That's kind of an interesting guitar, but when he passed away, his mother actually gave that guitar to Chris Cornell.
I think you told me that. That's really awesome.
Yeah, and because Chris had really advocated and helped Jeff take that big step to being a musician, you know, somebody who really made
someone
an
who plays at coffee houses to someone who plays at sold out houses.
Yeah. And if you guys don't know Jeff Buckley, and you've all heard the Hallelujah song, dig a little deeper. His music is phenomenal.
Amazing. Amazing. We lost a phenomenal musician. I always wonder what he would be doing now these days with the way things have advanced. I mean, he died in like 97, 98, something like that. So, yeah, things have changed. It would be really interesting to see what kind of music he'd be putting out now. He was so talented. Okay, so let's go ahead and put some of this shrubby stuff over here on this side. I'll show you it on my original. You can see where I just did this, and I have this floating stuff up here. But I do put some down in here, like there's more shrubs growing down in there. And you could even tap some little mossy color up in here. I don't use a lot of paint there. I just kind of want it sort of hazy, like the suggestion of the color. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do next. So I want to get a little more color in the water. I want to reflect some of these colors down in here, which we already have a good base. Thanks to Paul adding that Bahama blue in there. It was a really good choice. But I do want to take a little bit of paint on the brush, this greenish, and I'll just do some scratchy, random horizontal lines just to indicate that, hey, the color of the shrubs is reflecting down on the water.
Real scratchy.
Really scratchy, not a lot of paint. So when we say scratchy, we're literally like kind of just, you should hear it. It should make a little scratchy noise because your brush doesn't have a lot of paint on it. You can see, I can brush on my finger and there's very little paint on there. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a little of this green brush down on this rock too. And that's not really a reflection of this. This is more like you've got some moss growth. It adds some interest to this rock rather than leaving it just one plain solid color. And again, it's scratchy, very little paint. My paint is mixing with the wet sort of eggplant color. And that's good. I want that to happen. I'll put a little over here too. This will help separate this part too. It sounds like the dog is stuck under the table.
She's been doing that all night.
Yeah, for some reason she likes to go under this table, but there's a bar in front of it where I think she thinks she's gonna get out, and then she realizes she can't. Putting some of that color over here too.
Now I'm using a little bit different technique. Using the largest brush, and just really a very small amount of paint, and just tapping.
Let's see, Paul.
No, you don't have to.
You said it. Now everybody's going to want to see it. Okay, so yes, he's using the largest brush and doing more of a jabby sort of thing. He's the one who wrecks all these brushes in the studio. So if you come in here into our studio and you get a brush that's sort of frayed looking, it's his class.
That's not true.
But no, it looks really good.
If they're washed well throughout the process, then they keep their shape and they're fine.
So yeah, what he did is very little paint on the brush, and he's just sort of dabbing it around. This brush is too not frayed. I like to do this. You end up with these funny little pointy shapes. So you must be really wrecking the brush there, Paul.
No, I'm not.
All right, moving along. We don't have a whole lot left to do. So, okay, we've added our green. Let's get some waterfall color on there. So we're going to mix white with a tiny dot of phthalo blue. That's your indigo. And you get this really light blue base color. It looks like, I'll point it out in here. It's like, you know what color it is? Like, if you ever watch Adventure Time, like the Ice King is that color. The skin of the Ice King. It is a very ice blue, very, very, very pale. And it's kind of the color you would turn if you were freezing cold.
And if you don't watch Adventure Time, you should give it a chance. It's really weird, but it's really good.
Awesome. Our kids got us hooked on it. And now I guess that's done. There's no more seasons. Okay, so I'm going to... I don't have a lot of mixing room here, but I do have this area is dry. Paul and I together make a huge mess of the palette. And I'm going to use the corner of my brush, and I just scrape up the tiniest little droplet of blue.
I want to point out the spots I mixed. That one. That one.
Hey, go big or go home, Paul. Go big or go home.
I am home.
That's true. So there, I'm making a Ice King skin blue. There we go. It is actually really close to white, but not quite. And it's baby nursery blue. Let's go with that. I'm going to brush that in. Now you decide the height of your waterfall. I kind of had mine placed right here. And how about waterfalls? Are they flat across the top, Paul?
Always.
Always flat across the top. Unless there's a big rock there and it kind of splits it. And here's where I'm going to sort of brush. I'm using the brush vertically. So I'm using this skinny edge of the brush. And I want to brush over the cliff sides. Because it should look like the water is coming down and overlapping. And how do I make it hit the water? Let's see. Let's do this. You can use the flat side of your brush and go right up against the water. We're going to kind of blot that out. We don't want it to just fall and be like, oh, it ends right like that. And then it doesn't look quite right. It will look not quite right for a while. You can even kind of fray the sides a little bit. This waterfall is kind of gushing. I do want to, while I've got this paint on my brush, make sure you don't have too much. So wipe it off somewhere. So I'm the reason that this keeps happening because I keep wiping the brush off. And I want to just sort of, in fact, let's be safe. Let's go down to our number 8 brush. And here's what I'll do. I'll pull paint off the big brush with the number 8. And let me pull the original painting over here. The waterfall does reflect down in the water. You want to keep your brush strokes horizontal. And you do leave little streaks of green of the base of the water through there. You don't want to do solid light blue or it wouldn't look quite right. So yeah, I'm just going to scratch it in there. We're going to do those scratchy brush strokes down to the bottom of the canvas. And on this one, I sort of just went off at a little bit of a line. You could go straight down. I don't know, I guess my inclination on this one, for whatever reason, was to go off a little bit at an angle. So here I go, scratching it in there. And you want it to be as wide as the waterfall is. kinda, sorta. Ish. I have a lot more water to work with this time, so get a little more reflection going on. You can use your finger too if you want to sort of smudge it in. Looking good. Oh, yeah, it looks so good on the screen. I don't know what it is, but I always tell students in the studio that your paintings look better on screen. Like, so I'll take a picture of their painting when they're like, "Oh, I'm done. Can you take my picture?" And I show it to them, and they're like, "Whoa!" I don't know why that is, but it has always been this little phenomenon. I don't know if it just smooths everything out.
It's like stepping back from it.
Yep, it is actually. One of our painting instructors in college used to tell us to step way far back. He'd do it in his quiet voice, way far back. I couldn't tell. He kind of had an accent, didn't he?
He just was.
He was so quiet.
He just had a sophisticated accent.
Yeah, very sophisticated accent.
I don't know what it was, but.
All right. Hey, we're ready for deciduous trees.
Nobody's had any questions yet, so we must be doing good.
I think so. Or they're just watching. A lot of people actually watch the video first, and then they do the painting with the video, which I think is a great idea. I see what Paul is doing right now. He's doing something that Bob Ross does.
It's in the original.
Is it? Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't know if the instructions talk about it. It might. But, so he's taken this light blue that we were just using, and one thing Bob always does is he does this really thin line. It's a water line. It divides the land from the water, and it helps make that water look nice and glassy.
Now, you don't always have water lines, but in creeks and places where the water's being disturbed by a waterfall, it makes sense because...
Yeah, I'll just do some little current lines in there with that color. Not a lot of paint. Again, when you put too much, you have to like try to force it somewhere. So I start with little and add more. Okay, so we are going to do the deciduous trees next. And to me, they are easier to teach and more forgiving than the fir trees. And people do generally pretty good with these. I have two rather large ones, and then this one looks like it's just like a new growth with no leaves on it. I feel like I would want to put a few little leaves on there. I'm actually a little shocked that I didn't. So, and then we'll add some oranges and yellows and white on the waterfall, and we'll actually be done after that. So, let's talk about deciduous trees real quick. I don't know, we didn't do a deciduous tree in the last game.
No, we did not.
Okay, so very different than the fir trees, obviously. I generally will use my smallest brush or the thin edge of the number 8. I find more frequently I'm using the thin edge of the number 8. I do like to mix a tiny bit of water with whatever paint color I'm using. In this case, it's black. Let me move this over in sight here. So I'll just usually put a drop of water down and pull some paint into it. I thin it out to the consistency of like a heavy cream. So you don't want something that's going to drip off your canvas, but you don't want something that's super thick either. And especially as you've been sitting here doing the tutorial, your paint dries and it thickens up from the drying process. So adding a little water back in there is a nice way to refresh it. And I'm going to show you now, let's say this is my little ground area. What I do is I have the students go up from the ground and purposely try to make your tree trunk a little wavy, not like ramen noodle wavy, because that would look weird. Sometimes when I say wavy, people take it really literally. And then up at the top, I'm going to split off into, I'm not pushing very hard with this brush, and I'm using the thin edge. I'm doing a Y shape, and I purposely will tell students, leave one side a little longer than the other, just to start them keeping it really random. And then I'm going to branch off of this Y, and I'll do one here too. Some people like to flip back and forth, so they're kind of balancing it out. For the little branches, I think the little brush you'll have an easier time with. And all of these will have branches. Think of it like split ends. The ends are splitting, and they're growing nice and long. This is a healthy tree. It's just losing its leaves. So if you do stunted branches, it's going to look more like... I almost dipped this in your wine.
That's your wine.
Oh, it is? Okay.
I think you've had enough.
Not hardly. So a lot of times people make the branches all one length. This is so tiny, I don't know if you can see it. And it ends up looking like deer antlers. And that can be fixed just by extending some of the branches out longer. And I'll do that. I'll come by their canvas and be like, do you mind if I take your brush and show you something? Please, get it out of my hand. So then I'll take and I'll just extend their branches up and add some more to them. And it's an easy fix. So do make them long and wavy. It shows a healthy tree. And I just keep going. Sometimes if people are really having difficulty with it, I actually tell them, flip your canvas upside down and pretend you're painting a lightning bolt forking down from the sky. And that kind of takes the pressure off of painting a tree. And they're like, oh, I'm painting a lightning bolt. And then they flip it back over. And it's like, hey, I have a really nice tree. So there's a nice branchy tree. Mm-hmm. Nice wavy long branches. They're really thin. And they should be thinner on the ends than they are where they grow out of the tree. Otherwise, it would look weird. Like if I did this really thin here and then suddenly really heavy, you can see that looks really strange. And it would break off in nature. So are we ready?
Always.
You're ready. Okay, so let's take this guy, and I'm going to keep my little brush on hand for the little branches, but I'm going to use my number 8 for the main tree trunk and the main base of the tree. So I have one over here. I'm going to come up from the ground, and then I guess about halfway up the cliff face, I'll start going off. Like you're painting a Y. And the tree trunk will always be a tiny bit thicker where it grows out of the ground. Not a huge amount. You don't want like a big bell-bottom looking thing for the size of tree. And then I'm going to do this side and purposely leave one a little longer than the other. I'll set my number 8 aside. I'm not going to wash it right now because I'm going to use it in just a second. And I'm going to go ahead and paint lots of little branches.
Sorry.
Did you have a happy accident?
No, I just moved the table.
Oh, okay. I didn't even feel it or see it. So here's the idea of doing a lightning bolt. It's kind of hard to see on there. So this is what I'll have students do. I'll be like, pretend this is a black lightning bolt and it's just coming down out of the sky. And then some people have a much easier time pulling down towards themselves and a harder time painting upward. Try both. See what works for you. You've got plenty of years to learn trees, and practice will only make you better. My grandma was a painter, and she's the one who taught me how to do these.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I knew she was a painter.
Yeah, we've got like 4 or 5 of her paintings hanging in our house. Lots of landscapes. But yeah, she sat me down one day when I was really little. I was drawing, actually. She showed me how they're done. And it's worked all these years, and I've just gotten better and better at it. But my first ones were probably horrendous. Okay, so now I'm going to paint another tree over here. Now it's just going to kind of come out of the moss shrub thing. I'm not going to have it go all the way down to the ground. I think it would look funny to have it right at lake level or pond level. So it's gonna be here, but I'm gonna pile some orangey shrubby stuff around the base of it. So up I go, splitting apart. Now I'll set this in the water because I'm done with that one. And I'm gonna refresh my black with a little more water because it evaporates so fast that you'll be constantly having to make your heavy whipping cream. Black heavy whipping cream. Okay, so I'll go ahead and add a few little branches off this guy here. Hopefully you can see. Oh gosh, it's so dark. My whole canvas base is so dark, I know it's kind of hard to see. Let me see if I tilt this up. Good to know. Dark paintings, a little harder to see.
Yeah, they tend to want to reflect the light a lot.
Yeah. And we got a lot of light going on in here. Paul went out and shopped and got obsessive and bought a ton of lights.
Just wait, there's more to come.
So if you want to do that little sprout here, you can, or you can leave it with 2, or you could put one over here. Maybe I'll be a little different and I'll put it over here to show you that that's okay. You can make last minute decisions You'll know right away what works and what doesn't. This one I did all with the little brush because it's going to be so small.
I'm going to add another tree.
You do you, Paul.
Always do. It's a dog hair.
Is it a dog hair or a brush hair?
It's not a brush hair.
Okie dokie.
I think I saw a study at one point in time that said like 95% of all the great masterpieces have at least one hair stuck in the
Yeah,
paint.
there's one Van Gogh painting that they recently found has a dead grasshopper in it. And I don't remember what painting it was, but it's like, everybody's like, oh, the grasshopper is from those times. Yay, old bug. Adjust that. Okay, we're looking pretty good. This does show up pretty dark on the camera. We're going to lighten the background a little bit with some orange. We're going to brighten it back up. So I'm going to use my number 8 again. I'm not going to touch the trees quite yet. The black will dry really fast, so we'll be able to put some leaves on them right away. But I'm going to take a little orange, swipe my brush, so that's this one here, swipe my brush a little bit on the palette to knock off any excess paint pigment. And one of the things I like to do is brush a little orange here and there in the rock face, around the trees, like not just around the trees, but not on top or not on the branches or anything. And just kind of scratch it in there. This could be done earlier too.
What is this, Jenny?
I don't know. I know I just brushed some orange into it. It's probably just, I was thinking of adding some brightness to the rock face. I remember doing it. But I don't know if I had an actual reason.
So what you're saying is it's highlights of the cliff.
Sure, go with that. It's color. This is in the instructions at this point. I almost feel like this could be done a little earlier. It would be a little easier, but this is okay.
I think one of the reasons that gets a little bit tricky is then you feel like you have to work around the trees.
Yeah. For sure. It's fire, Paul.
Okay.
It's interesting the color it turns on top of this, though. It actually kind of bleaches out the orange a little bit. Have you noticed that? It's kind of more of an orange sherbet-like color.
Yeah. It's because it's a very opaque pale orange, so it's going to do that. So
I didn't put a lot. Like I said, this might be a better step to do earlier or leave it off altogether. But it did kind of lighten it up. They're little fairy lights glowing in the canyon. So now I'm going to, because I do yellow and orange in the trees, there's no need to wash the brush. In fact, I love it when the yellow and orange mix together for fall trees. But let's use our craft yellow. That's what I used on the original. You could use your deep yellow. It's just not going to show up quite as much because the craft yellow is super opaque. And the deep yellow is what we put back here. It's the glaze, and it's a lot more transparent. So for that pop of color, I do like to use the super opaque craft yellow. Number 8 brush. And we're basically just going to dab little dots all over. So your trees can be full, or they can be, like these are pretty full, or they can be like they've lost most of their leaves and there's just a few hanging off. So starting with craft yellow, no need to wash your brush. And I just dab all around the branches. Now, you don't have to attach every single leaf to a branch. A lot of people in the studio try to do that because it's natural. They want to have it attached somewhere. But we don't see, we're far enough away, we don't see all the little tiny twigs and tiny little branches that are connected here and holding these leaves on. So cluster them around, float them nearby, put some on the branches, but don't fall into the pattern of, oh, I have to do every single one on a branch. I've seen this before, where the tree starts looking like that, and it looks funny. So what you do, just go crazy. Cluster them all around. Make a big head of broccoli. So you will cover up some branch work that you did. Hey, I got some orange in there. And that's fine, especially if you have a branch that you look at and you're like, what the heck did I do? I got too heavy with the paint. Dab a whole bunch of leaves over it, and it's like it never existed. Now in the fall, this time of year, we're not just going to have leaves attached to the tree. They're also going to be blowing off. Like a big gust of wind came by and it blew some. They landed over here and maybe down in here. They're flying throughout this little canyon area. So I'm going to do that now. Now you can use the corner of your brush to do smaller dots, or you can use the whole wide side. I'm doing kind of a little swoop, I don't know what you would call it, a swoop, technical term. The dots are nice because then you can kind of play around and make them bigger with how much pressure you put down. But yeah, here we go. Flying away. Leaves are flying. And I'll have some on the ground, piled around the base of the tree. I notice our front yard is starting to have some of these piled around the base of the cars and the base of the trees and in the lawn, where the lawn should be.
Yeah, we don't have a lawn. What are you talking about?
We have a natural... we tried keeping a lawn for so long. We've lived in this house 16 years, and Sherwood was built on a floodplain. I'm gonna add some here now. And so grass was always really hard to keep for us. It was too much work, so we just researched native plants. And we put in just a natural, like, I don't know, would you call it a rain garden? Natural?
Well, the front yard's actually a moss garden.
A moss garden.
So it's green at certain times of year.
Yep. And it's been great.
Actually. And it's intentional. It's not like I'm just like, just let it all get mossy.
We haven't gotten any letters from the HOA on the plantings. We've gotten letters on the weeds that grow around them. So there I've got this side, it kind of looks like it's snowing leaves, which I really like, and definitely looks better if you could see it. I see on the video it's like kind of chaos looking, but in person, I promise! Weirdly enough, it kind of looks a little better in person. So I'm going to add a few over here. Ooh, Paul, you're just going all Bob Ross over there. You're so good with landscapes. I definitely am the one that will paint like the foxes and all the whimsical paintings, like weird abstract flowers. I got a thing or two to learn about landscapes, I guess. Always learning. Okay, so this is where I want to cover up the base of this tree, so it's not just suddenly like appearing. And I'll tap some of this yellow here and there on top of the green shrubby stuff we put on earlier.
You know, I'm going to tell everybody about the contest.
Okay.
So we decided that we want to start doing a couple of different monthly contests. And if you have been to our website, we've got some additional boxes that we're going to start doing that are not part of the subscription box, but they're just little add-on projects. And next month we're doing a reclaimed wood coffin shape with a famous character from a
famous Halloween cartoony animated thing
movie, kind of related to a winter holiday and all that stuff. And we decided let's give a couple of those away each month. So there's two different ways you can be entered in to win. The first way is just being a Gogh Box subscriber. So we're going to give one away to members every month.
I'm going to put some leaves down here just while you're talking.
Sure. And then the other way, which will give you a couple of different opportunities to win, is if you paint along and you finish your painting, if you share it on Instagram and you hashtag GoBox and tag GoBox, then that'll automatically give you 2 entries for the drawing, and the person will be just drawn at random. And then do the same thing at Facebook. That'll give you 2 more. So that'll give you 4 opportunities to win. And that's for each painting. So that's where I come up with 4. We've got Toketee Falls and Summer Bonfire. Do both of those on Instagram. Do them both on Facebook. 4 chances to win.
Yeah, we're waiting to see your paintings. Some of you have already posted, and we love that. And
so the box that we've got this month coming up is valued at $60 because it is the reclaimed wood that has to be handmade. Which I do that myself, so it's a lot of work. So anyway, a couple different ways, and there's some information. The other thing is we have a Facebook group called Gogh Box Art Crate, and we've got a lot of several.
It's
of you
outside of our normal Gogh Box Facebook page.
Yeah, it's a group.
It's like you join it.
Yeah, it's a group, not the business page. And the nice thing about the groups is anytime we post something or anybody else shares something on there, you guys will get a notification on it. Yeah.
And we can do little discussions about, hey, this was kind of hard for me. How do I tackle this? How do I fix this? That kind of thing.
And there's no crazy algorithm from Facebook that filters who gets to see it and who doesn't get to see it. So
I'm just cramming the yellow leaves on here while you were talking. So now I am going to switch and put some orange ones on there. And oops, there's my wine. Don't want to wash the brush in there. You can see how easily that can happen. I'm going to wash my number 8 brush. And I'm going to use the craft orange now. So that was your one that looks like a pumpkin. Brush a little on my palette here. I think I got some blue in there. Maybe not. Okay, so now the orange leaves are just kind of an accent. And so a lot of times I'll put them just maybe at the top of the tree. We have some trees here in Sherwood that everybody takes pictures of. They're right along Sunset. And lots of people get their senior pictures taken because they are so bright. They look like light bulbs. They almost hurt your eyes to look at. But it's like this row of trees that goes down the road. Beautiful. And they do this like where they're fading from yellow to orange to this sort of reddish burgundy color.
It's the brightest red, really.
Yeah, I was looking at it the other day trying to think, what can I mix to replicate that? So make sure that if you put these on the trees, that you do put some down on the ground. They can be part of the shrubs too, like maybe it's a different variety of shrub there, or maybe they're leaves that fell down on top of the shrubs. So do put them on there. We don't have very many steps left, actually. How long have we been on?
We're just about an hour and 40 minutes.
Okay. This was a little longer than I thought. I was like, yeah, we'll take about an hour.
Actually, we're at an hour and 50 minutes.
We talked too much.
We kind of painted nonstop, though.
It's hard to know. Like, in the class at the studio, I know, okay, this painting takes exactly 2.5 hours with a break. Or this one takes exactly 2 hours with a break. And I'm always nailing that time. Perfect. It's like, it's kind of a contest with myself, I think. But with the video presentation, and using a little bit smaller canvas than we use in the studio, it's definitely different to figure out the timing. So I think these are probably going to be right at about 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on how much we talk. So let's streak a little ghost layer of some of the orange and yellow into the water, like it's being reflected from the trees down on here. And that, I have some orange left on my brush. I definitely don't want a lot. We just want it to be a little hazy, little hint of color in there. So do wipe your brush off on your towel or on your palette. And it's amazing, even though your brush looks clean, what you've got left on it, it will come out. This morning in the kitchen, gosh, I had the craziest morning. I dropped a whole entire bottle of this bright craft yellow paint, and I was just filling a small bottle with it, just totally innocent, and I dropped the whole big bottle, and once it hit the ground flat, like, you know, it was a bigger bottle than this, but it would just hit the ground flat, and the paint shot up out of the open lid. It shot about 5 feet in the air, coated me. I wasn't wearing an apron. I had my $50 Fabletics pants on that are relatively new. And then it got behind me too. It went all across the kitchen floor. Our dog was eating her breakfast and it got on her back and on the cupboards behind, and it was such a mess to clean up. I was wearing yellow paint for a while. I did get it out of my clothes. If it's fresh paint, I mean, it was globbed on there and it was that lemon yellow. If it's fresh paint, you can get it under the water right away. I brought my clothes up to the bathtub and just scrubbed them with some soap. And all is good. Then I threw them in the washing machine. Okay, so now I'm just getting a little yellow in there. I love the glow that this adds. beautiful. And it adds such a nice little color dimension to your water. But we've got all that beautiful turquoise in there that Paul had us add. And so don't go too crazy on the yellow. I see a couple little patches here in the land that I could fix up. Now is touch-up time. And our last little step here is going to be to finally add the white streaks to our waterfall. So we had the base coat, which was that light ice blue. And we're going to use the number 8 brush. We're going to vertically streak white in, purposely leave some blue showing through. And then at the bottom of the waterfall, we'll do little dots like it's spraying back up. And then some white in this. We remember earlier we had added the light blue reflection on the water. Well, since we're adding white up here, we also need to add some white reflected down below. And then we will be done. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm washing off my number 8 brush. Don't worry about your water. If you feel like you really want to change it, please do. I've got, so you can, I'm painting on my hand. There's no paint coming out, so I'm good. Pure white. I'm going to start by just kind of going straight across the top. And then I'm going to start streaking it downward, little at a time. This is where, if you want, you can use some really nice texture. And occasionally leave a little peekaboo blue in there. But randomly, you don't want like this perfect stripy pattern where it's like white, blue, white, blue, white, blue. It's going to be a little more random than that.
Please, no circus tent waterfalls.
Go ahead, you can brush it down to the a little bit over the water. That'll be covered up with splatters. My waterfall's just getting bigger and bigger as I go along. Here, I'll scrape off a nice glob. This is where you can get your texture in. It'll take a while to dry, though.
I think I'm done with mine.
All right, we'll look at yours in a second. So now I'm going to add just the little dots down here, just like we were doing with the leaves. I'm using the corner of the brush so I get nice tiny little dots, little pressure. Dab it all the way around the bottom and down into the water too, here. It should, there should be so much that it kind of blots out the water line right here. Other times what we've done in the studio is we've used our brush with a watered down white paint and we've done this sort of flick thing, which is a lot of fun. We do that for stars. If you want to do that, you'll water down your white paint a little bit and try it out that way. This way seems to work pretty good too. Now I'm going to add little horizontal white highlights down in the water, just like our big waterfall is reflecting down in there. And I am officially done. If there's anything that you see that you want to go back and touch up, you absolutely can. You've got forever to work on this painting. You could do it all over if you want. If you just got some acrylic gesso at Michael's, which is inexpensive, coat the whole canvas in white. You might have to do 2 coats. And you'll probably see some texture pointing through. You can do the tutorial over and over and over again as long as you have paint. And but I'm going to use my littlest brush, and I'll just pick a color to sign it with. You know, I'm going to sign it with Bahama Blue.
That's what I did.
Copycat.
No, I did first.
It's dried on top. It's got a little skin on it. And I just usually will put my initials down. And we're officially done with this. Let's have a look at Paul's. So you've seen mine this whole time. And let's have a look and see what Mr. Paul has done with the same painting. Already I like his better. A lot better. So he has definitely got a lot of depth. That's just gorgeous. That looks so pretty. Like, yeah, by comparison, so much better. So you're teaching all our landscape painting. No, so he uses like very little paint, and definitely he has a lot more scale going on in his painting. So he's got really tiny trees, and then the waterfall's a little smaller than my gigantic sprouting one there, and it just looks very, there's a lot of depth going on in the grandiose hills. It makes, because you did your waterfall smaller and shorter, it just looks like a much more, I don't know what the word is.
Organic?
Yeah, and just like you're in this area that's really fast, and mine's more like, here you go, you're right up close. Zoom in with your iPhone.
Right.
So you guys can see we definitely have different ways of painting. I learn a lot from Paul with the landscape paintings, and then he learns a bit from me with doing anything whimsical. Swirls have always been an issue for you.
I don't have the steadiest of hands.
Well, that's good. That works really good for this. So.
Yeah.
Well, I will let you guys know when our next tutorial will be. It will be in the beginning of October, but not so early that you guys won't have your boxes yet. So the boxes will ship either September 30th or October 1st, right in there, and no later than that.
Well, they'll need to ship October 1st because if anybody subscribes on September 30th, they'll get it.
We can always ship one.
What we'll actually do is if you, I really recommend that you subscribe to our YouTube channel because we can schedule out the live streams and you can look and see the schedule of when the upcoming live streams are.
Yeah, and you can get updates on YouTube too.
Yeah, so not only subscribe, but click the little notification thing. And, because we're going to start sharing some other little tutorials and fun things. And we've got one that we did last night that will be, again, I'll either be uploading it tonight or probably tomorrow evening. And that was just a fun you're going to be on your own for products on that. But
yeah, it's kind of more of a like, here, pick up this color, that color. You can use some of your colors that came in the Gogh Box. But I did a couple paintings on pumpkins, and we'll be putting up a lot of extra kind of freebie, if you will, videos that are just like, hey, go here, buy this, here's some projects for you, or just something to watch, something entertaining.
Yeah.
So, cheers, dude.
Cheers.
We did it again.
We did it again.
This time live. Thank you to our new computer.
I'm empty.
You're empty. We got a little wine left.
All right.
So, thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Have a great rest of your day, whatever time it is you end up watching it.
Whatever time it is. And thank you again for supporting us all these years. And we're really excited about our new adventure.
Cheers.
Cheers.